We are live on YouTube, Pat.
Thank you. I haven't seen Jim Tierney yet. Jim, are you out there? Hello?
I'm here.
Okay, all right. Oh, there's the fan.
I'm here.
So we have Ricky, Jill. I'll just go through. Rick, are you out there?
Yes.
Jesse?
All right.
Back.
Okay. Hi. Jill?
Yes.
Patrick?
I'm here.
Good. All right, so is there anything anything else on your end, Dan?
1 second. Make sure we're recording. I think we're good. We're live on YouTube and recording with Zoom. We are ready to go.
All right, and Terry, just want to make sure Terry's there and ready to go.
I'm ready. Thank you.
All right, great. Okay, so we're going to call our Narragansett Town Council special meeting of April 29th, 2020 to order. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and
to the republic which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty,
liberty,
justice
for all.
Amen.
All right, so first of all, welcome everyone to tonight's town council meeting. At the recommendation of our town staff, tonight's meeting will address the agenda items that would have dealt with the items that would have been discussed at meetings we canceled during the state of emergency. Our regular meeting on Monday, May 4th, will essentially then be a budget meeting as we plan to get through our regular items tonight at tonight's meeting. Regarding the state of emergency and pandemic, I hope and pray that everyone is staying safe. Thank you for your patience as we endured this change to our lives for over a month. Thank you to the town staff for their hard work during this time. Our manager, clerk, finance director, and senior management team have all been helpful and hands-on. We've asked for patience during the past month. Now I can see that patience is turning into hope. Hope that we can get back to normal as soon as possible, put this nightmare behind us. After all, hope is our state motto for Rhode Island. Tonight's meeting, as you all know, is being conducted remotely. So for each agenda item, I will ask if there's a motion. I ask the council member who wishes to make the motion to state his or her name and say so move. Then I will ask if the motion has a second. I ask the council member seconding the motion to state his or her name and say second. Then I'm going to ask the council members in order if they wish to speak on the motion. So if a council member has nothing to say, he or she can simply say nothing at this time or something to that effect. When the conversation on the motion is concluded, I'll then ask for a roll call vote, calling the council members in order to state their name and their vote. This roll call is very important for the clerk to get an accurate transcription of the meeting tonight. So I've advised our clerk, Terry Donovan, to speak up and interrupt me if anything is unclear or left out. And I just wanted to thank our IT director, Dan Holland, for hosting and facilitating tonight's meeting. So let's get started. Our first item, because it's a special meeting, is a motion to accept the call and warrant for a special town council meeting scheduled for April 29th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. and that the warrant be made part of the record of this meeting. Is there a motion?
Richard Lima, I make that motion.
Is there a second?
Jill Lawler, I second it.
All right. Is there any commentary from council members? Mr. Lima?
None.
Mr. Pugh?
No.
Mr. Murray?
None.
Ms. Lawler?
None.
All right, so I'm going to call all in favor. Mr. Lima?
Richard Lima, aye.
Mr. Pugh,
Jesse Pugh, aye.
Mr. Murray,
Patrick Murray, aye.
Ms. Lawler,
Jill Lawler, aye.
Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 5-0. Next is the approval of the minutes. I'm going to ask if we can put those off. Terry, I didn't get a chance to go through all of them, unfortunately. So I'm going to move to announcements and presentations. This is important, I think, especially for the public. We have a lot of rescheduled hearings, so we want to put all that out there on the record. First, for the budget process, we have our first public hearing, which will be a public hearing for the school budget, and then the first hearing on the town budget, May 4th at 8 p.m. We have budget work sessions scheduled for May 6th and May 13th. Second public hearing on the budget for the municipal as well as the capital improvement plan, June 1st at 8 p.m. First reading of the budget ordinance and adoption of the CIP resolution will be on the June 1st meeting. Second reading and adoption of the budget ordinance, June 15th. Then we have a few other items that we have to just get people aware of. The bulk zoning ordinance amendments related to the moratorium, Tuesday, May 26th at 7:30 p.m. We have 3 liquor licenses that we were not able to get to. Those will be on June 1st at 8 p.m. That's Buster Crabs, Proof, and J Cove 1 Angel Road. Harbor Management Plan, there's amendment to the plan and to the ordinance itself. That's going to be June 15th, 8 p.m. And then Recreational Vehicle Height Ordinance, July 6th at 8 p.m. All right, so that gets us to our consent agenda. So if there are any items from the consent agenda that the council members would like to pull. Mr. Lima,
None that I see.
Mr. Pugh,
Jesse Pugh. Are we just talking about the first consent agenda?
yes, 1 through 19.
None.
Okay. Mr. Murray,
None.
all right, and Ms. Lawler.
Yes, I'd like to pull 2 just for discussion, number 4 and number 19, please.
All right, so is there a motion to approve the consent agenda minus items number 4 and 19?
Jill Lawler, so moved.
Richard Lima, second.
All in favor, Mr. Lima,
Richard Lima, aye.
Mr. Pugh,
Jesse Pugh, aye.
Mr. Murray,
Aye.
and Ms. Lawler.
Aye.
All right, and Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 5-0. Item number 4 is a motion to approve the request from the Bonnet Shores Beach Club to have live entertainment on Thursday, July 2nd, 2020 from 7:30 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. subject to state and local regulations as part of its fireworks display. Is there a motion?
So moved. Jill Lawler, so moved.
Is there a second?
Richard Lima, second.
Discussion, well, Jill, what's your, we'll start with you and then we'll go through the list.
Yeah, sure. I absolutely love the idea and totally supportive of it. But my question, Matt, is looking at the newly put in definition for consent agenda, since we haven't talked about this, because what we're looking to do, and again, I fully support it, is to allow for a change of the license to allow for music to be had on a Thursday evening. Since we hadn't previously reviewed it and it's not routine, should it be on the consent agenda? I'm just looking for best practice here, or should it be on the regular agenda item?
I think in the past it's been on consent, but you pulled it off. So is there a question that you have about it?
That's my
Talk about-
question. Does it belong on the consent or should it be on the regular? Because I don't want to have to come back and entertain it again. So I guess Mark or Terry.
Well, we're entertaining it now. It's not on the consent agenda. All right, is there anything from Mr. Lima?
No, I think the question that's being answered is, any of the motions, I believe this is how I read it, is if a motion is on the consent agenda and anybody has questions concerning it, you can pull it and then we discuss it. So it would be basically like it would be on a regular agenda once it's pulled because you're discussing it. Am I close to that, Terry?
Yes.
Okay, so,
And just to Jill Lawler here, that was my point, is I wasn't quite sure, should it be on the consent agenda or on the regular motion? That's my question.
It can be on either. It doesn't have a dollar figure associated with it. The consent items are dollar figure oriented. $10,000.
But not to be a dead horse, it might not even matter because of what happened today with the governor, but it does not appear to fit the definition of the consent agenda as written in front of us right now.
Is there anything from you, Mr. Pugh?
Jesse Pugh here. No, I get what you're saying, Joe. I don't have an issue with the item itself, so I don't have any comment on the item itself now.
All right, Mr. Murray.
We can amend it to fit the consent agenda.
Well, it's already off the consent agenda.
I'm on board with it, Matt. I'm on board.
Anything more from Jill?
No, it's just, if it's off the consent, we would put it on the regular one and we can vote to approve it then.
Right, it's all, once we pull it, it's off the consent. By fact, 4 and 19 are off consent. 19 is going to be voted, 19's off. 4 and 19 you pulled off. Once you pull it off, it's off consent.
So
It's now a regular item,
okay, that's what I was looking for, Matt. Thank you.
the regular item.
Clarifying that.
Items 4 and 19, right? Anytime someone pulls an item, even if it's just to say that it's something that you want to publicize for the community, it no longer is on consent agenda. The consent agenda is bundled together, and the items 4 and 19 will now appear separately. All right, so, all right, all in favor? I'll start with Mr. Lima.
Richard Lima, aye.
Mr. Pugh,
Jesse Pugh, aye.
Mr. Murray,
Aye.
and Ms. Lawler.
Aye.
Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 5-0. Item 19 is a motion to approve, ratify, and confirm Town Executive Orders 2020-01, 2020-02, 2020-03, and 2020-04. Is there a motion?
Jill Lawler, so moved.
Is there a second?
Richard Lima, second.
Discussion, Mr. Lima.
I don't really have any discussion on it. I'm fine the way it is.
All right, Mr. Pugh,
Jesse Pugh, I'm fine with it as well.
Mr. Murray,
I'm good. I'm for it.
Ms. Lawler.
So I just don't wish to vote for it for a couple reasons, but the main reason is the definition, the declaration itself was different than the one that I originally saw. Jim Tierney had done a definition for our emergency similar to what we had in South Kingstown that called for stricter controls to protect our residents. And again, this was done in the second week of March. Things like to stop short-term rentals, to be more aggressive as far as requiring that quarantine actually happen in an overall effort to protect our neighborhoods with a look at our community hospital, making sure we could protect that. So I do not wish to vote for the way it was written in the attachment here.
All right, I'm gonna now call the vote. Is there, I'll start with Mr. Lima. All in favor?
Richard Lima, aye.
Mr. Pugh,
Jesse Pugh, I just want to say before I vote, I do agree with Jill. We did want to put some stronger measures in back in March that didn't seem to make it in. Now, with it being almost May, I'm fine with the way it's set for now because those measures, they're kind of outdated now a month later, for me personally. So I'm okay with it as is now, but I'll vote yes.
Mr. Murray,
Yes, aye.
Ms. Lawler.
And I'm just going to echo what Jesse just said. Right now, it doesn't seem to make a difference to do it. And we see the governor coming with stricter restrictions anyway, but I just wanted to have it out there for the town residents who many have called me and inquired from me why we didn't take a more aggressive stance to protect them, that it was my intent to do that. And unfortunately, those words didn't make it to the paper that was signed. So
All
I'll
right,
vote yes.
Yes or no?
I'll vote yes with that because I agree with Jesse. Right now, we're in May.
All right, Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 5-0. The next.
We got a
item
question
is
from the public.
consent. Oh, okay.
Paul's on furlough.
I've already called the vote. Go ahead. So, all right. So if you want to make a comment on this, go ahead. Dan.
Okay, Paul, you're live.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
So I just wanted to ask a question. I'm curious as to the validity of the executive order, because I don't see anything in the town charter that allows for that. So I understand that improvisation has to be done sometimes in the fog of war, if you will, but it doesn't seem like this is a thing that can even be ratified. It doesn't seem like there's a mechanism for this in the charter. So my concern would be that this sets a precedent that somebody could put together an executive order, without having the charter authority to do so. So I'm a little bit concerned that it came across as ratifying something that doesn't really exist.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on to the second consent agenda, the consent agenda for Parks and Recreation Department events. Is there a motion regarding the second consent agenda for items 20 through 29?
Jill Lawler, I'll move the motion.
Is there a second?
Richard Lima, I'll second it.
All right, any commentary? All right, motion for, okay, so Mr. Lima, any commentary?
No, I think some of the concern will be, Matt, on some of these on some of these consent agendas. Because again, I hear it out there on social media and other things as we approve these things, I want people at home to understand that all of these are subject to state and local regulations. So if the state says that we cannot have an event, then we will probably have to follow through with those rules. So approving any of this means we've approved it subject to, and the subject to will be if things are better in September, October, November, December. I'm not a doctor to tell everybody when things will be good and when they won't be good, but we're just approving things to move forward. It doesn't mean that it will happen, but we've approved it. And I think explaining it in that fashion, if anybody else wants to express their thoughts on it, I want people at home to understand that because we approve something doesn't mean it's set in stone. So we're just approving to move it forward. Doesn't mean it will happen. It may happen, it may not, but they're subject to state and local regulations. So
Thank you.
I do approve 20 through 29.
All right, Mr. Pugh.
All right, so, based on the announcement today or the statement today from the governor, as well as some of the contractual obligations in some of these motions, I'm going to request that we move 20 to 28 to the regular agenda. I'm sorry to slow up the meeting. I know it's going to add some time to the meeting, but each of these items is unique when it comes to the contracts and the cash layouts. So 20 to 28, I like to move to regular.
Okay, all right, so then we're going to change the motion. All right, so I'm going to look for an amendment. We're basically just, we're approving item number 29. So consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Terry, help me out here. Do we need to withdraw the other motion?
We can approve the consent agenda with the exception of items 20 through 28.
That's what we'll do. So we'll look for an amendment to that effect. Is there an amendment to that effect? Jesse, do you want to make that amendment?
Jesse, P, I'll make the amendment.
All right, is there a second to that?
Second, Patrick Murray.
All right, so all in favor of that, we're gonna go down the list. Mr. Lima,
Richard Lima, aye.
Jesse POI.
Mr. Murray,
Aye.
Ms. Lawler,
Jill Lawler, aye.
Mr. Mannix, aye. So motion approved, 5-0. So we're gonna move to item number 20. Number 20 is a motion to approve the time and production services for the 2020 Movies on the Beach Summer Series from R. Jason Citrone Production Services and the total amount of $5,850. Is there a motion?
Jill Lawler, so moved.
Is there a second?
Richard Lima, I second that motion.
All right, discussion. Mr. Lima,
So again, I think I stated earlier what I thought about these. Again, there's no guarantee that this gentleman will get his $5,850 based on the fact that we're approving this. It's just based on the fact of, will it fall into the state and local regulations on the timing of it? So for me, that's all I have to say with that motion.
all right, Mr. Pugh,
All right, so this statement, I guess, is for pretty much all of these events. And I'd like to get the town manager's opinion on this too. I know the statement was made today, just a couple hours ago, but the governor said there's not going to be parades, concerts, any gatherings over 50 people in Rhode Island this summer. So now it hasn't been written into law. It's fresh. But we can't ignore that. We're in a meeting approving these things, knowing what the governor just said. So before I vote on this, Jim, do you mind just kind of saying a few things about this?
I think they're all contingent upon whether or not we can legally hold them. But without reviewing every individual contract that's affiliated with them to see if we could sustain any type of a loss, I'd have to review all of those with the solicitor. But if they can't be held by law, they can't be held. Mark Davis, am I correct in that?
We would certainly want to take a look at the contract to ensure that there was an out for that particular purpose. We know there's proposed litigation all over the place over what an act of God is on insurance policies and things of that nature. So something we would want to expressly insert into any contract that we do, Jim, to give us discretion. That being said, I haven't heard the governor's announcement with respect to 50 people, but as we know, if we open the beach this year, there will clearly be more than 50 people. Otherwise, you won't be opening the beach. So the question then becomes, if you're going to do something at the beach, can you distance groups, families of 4, families of 6, whatever it may be, in such a way that you have more than 50 people that can watch a movie? I don't know the answer to that, but I think that's the question. Whenever you're talking about parks or beaches or public spaces, is that considered a public gathering? I don't know. But
Can I chime in?
the short answer is on contracts, we would definitely put something very subjective in there that favors the town.
Patrick, you're up next, actually.
Yeah. Okay, can we just put a blanket statement, all events contract for 2020 contingent upon COVID-19 state guidelines? Bing,
As interpreted by the town manager or town council.
correct.
Yeah,
Just a blanket statement, covers all of it.
we would definitely want to make it as broad as possible.
Correct.
Ms. Lawler, do you have anything to say?
No, Jill Lawler, I agree with both Jesse and with Patrick. I think we need to make sure, because there are some big dollar amounts here, the Philharmonic alone, and we just need to make sure that we're on top of this one so that we're going to hit a big hit this summer. Think about the amount of money that from the beach alone that we're not going to be generating. So good call, Jesse, to look at these items closer.
So in terms of these, I was thinking about the Little League Parade, which we voted on and approved. which is a smaller event than this, which obviously I haven't officially heard is canceled, but I'm assuming it's canceled. No one's actually emailed me on that yet, but I'm just assuming it's canceled. It's within the May 8th. So a lot of these events were, many of them say subject to state and local regulations already. In fact, as I look through them, most of them do. So, I mean, we can continue these items if that's what people want to do. I know that if the thing is that everything is changing in terms of the day-to-day on this, on the size of event that you can go to and all that kind of stuff. So, we can, we can just continue each of these items is probably the smartest thing to do at this time. We'll get a lot more information after the May 8th order is lifted. So that being said, we want to make a motion to continue item 20.
Jesse Pugh, I'll make the motion to continue, number 20.
All right, is there a second for that?
Jill Lawler, I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion on that? I'll go through the list again. Mr. Lima?
Richard Lima, aye.
No, this is just discussion. Any further discussion on 20?
No further discussion. Like I said before, all of this is subject to state and local regulations, and right now the state
Right.
has already implemented. So if all of these follow into the state and local regulations, and we're following those guidelines with COVID-19, then they'll all fall into that parameter. So again, I'm fine.
All right, Mr. Pugh, anything else to say?
Sure. And this is more about one of the other items on the consent, but it kind of carries over to all of them. So like the Philharmonic, they have a specific clause in their contract where if there's acts or regulations by public authorities, it doesn't void their payment. Or at least that's, I may not be reading it right, but there is some wording in there to that effect. So even if we say, subject to local authorities, their contract contradicts that. That's why I think it does make sense to continue these until we have a better legal understanding of the obligations.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. Go ahead, Patrick.
I didn't say anything. I'm
Is there
good,
anything
though. I'm good. Let's just,
Anything else,
we'll
Ms.
just play it
Lawler?
by ear,
Right.
I'd like to have Mark take a look at it. So if we want to hold off for a while and have Mark look at it and put some language in to protect the town, that's the best way to go as far as I.
Yep.
All right, so item 20, so basically what we'll do is we'll continue this, and I'm going to then look for a motion to continue items 21 through 28, because there's no reason for me to read each of them and go through what is essentially going to be the same conversation. So item 20, I'm just good right now is on the table, and then I'll look for a motion on the rest of them. So right now, I'm just going to go for the roll call. We've got Mr. Lima.
Richard
motion-
Lima, aye.
Mr. Pugh?
Patrick Murray, aye.
Jill Lawler, aye.
I didn't get Mr. Pugh. Mr. Pugh?
Jesse Pugh, aye.
Okay, Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 5-0. And now I'm going to look for a motion to continue items 21 to 28.
Jill Lawler, so moved.
Is there a second?
Richard Lima, second.
All right. I'm going to call the vote on that. It's Mr. Lima first.
Richard Lima, aye.
Jesse
Mr. Pugh?
Aye.
Mr. Murray?
Patrick Murray, aye.
Ms. Lawler?
Jill Lawler, aye.
Mr. Mannix, aye. Motion approved 5-0. Now we're to our regular agenda items. We've got number 30, a motion to reject the bids received for medical supplies for the fire department. Is there a motion?
Jill Lawler, so moved.
Is there a second?
Richard Lima, second.
All right, discussion. Start with Mr. Lima.
No, I see that obviously this is the chief. If he wants to say anything on it, you've rejected a bid, obviously, for whatever reasons, and if it's your motion, then I'm fine with it.
Mr. Pugh.
Jesse Pugh, no issue with this, no comment.
All right, Mr. Murray.
Yeah, I'm good.
Ms.
Yes.
Lawler.
I'm fine.
All right, so all in favor, we'll start with Mr. Lima.
Richard Lima, aye.
Mr. Pugh,
Jesse Pugh, aye.
Mr. Murray,
Aye.
Ms. Lawler,
Jill Lawler, aye.
Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 5-0. Item 31 is a motion to approve the security software replacement project for information technology from Zones LLC pursuant to the NCPA contract in the amount of $18,749.27. Is there a motion?
Jill Lawler, so moved.
Is there a second?
Richard Lima, second.
Right, discussion, any commentary, Mr. Lima?
None.
Commentary, Mr. Pugh?
Nope.
Commentary, Mr. Murray?
None.
Commentary, Ms. Lawler?
None.
All right, all in favor? We'll start with Mr. Pugh. I'm sorry, Mr. Lima,
Richard Lima, aye.
Mr. Pugh,
Jesse Pugh, aye.
Patrick,
Aye.
Ms. Lawler,
Jill Lawler, aye.
Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 5-0. Item 32 is a motion to award the bid for water supply system management plan update to James J. Jeremiah and Associates Incorporated in the amount of $24,400. Is there a motion?
Jill Lawler, so moved.
Is there a second?
Richard Lima, second.
All right, any discussion? We'll start with Mr. Lima,
None.
Mr. Pugh. Mr. Pugh, any discussion on 32?
Sorry. You hear me?
Any discussion on 32?
You can't hear me?
Yes.
I hear you now. Yeah,
None.
none. Okay, Mr. Murray,
None.
Ms. Lawler.
None.
All right, all in favor? We'll start with Mr. Lima,
Richard Lima, aye.
Mr. Pugh,
Jesse Pugh, aye.
Mr. Murray,
Aye.
Ms. Lawler,
Jill Lawler, aye.
Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 5-0. Item 33 is a motion to authorize the town manager to sign the leasehold easement agreement with University Solar LLC as related to the off-site solar power generating facility located in West Greenwich, and with Founders Homestead Farm Solar LLC as related to the off-site solar power generating facility located in Portsmouth. Is there a motion?
Jill Lawler, so moved.
Is there a second?
Richard Lima, second.
Is there anybody from the council, and I'm going to make this a little more open-ended, that has questions about this or would like a summary of this, or are you prepared to vote? If you have some, if you want more of a summary, speak up now. All right, so just commentary then. We'll go with Mr. Lima. Any commentary?
None.
Mr. Pugh,
None.
Murray,
None.
Lawler.
None.
All right, all in favor, Mr. Lima,
Richard Lima, aye.
Mr. Pugh,
Jesse Pugh, aye.
Mr. Murray,
Aye.
Miss Lawler,
Aye.
Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 5-0. Item 34 is a motion to approve the emergency repairs to the Woodruff Ave traffic lights completed by Ardent Engineering Constructors LLC in the amount of $63,413. Is there a motion?
Jill Lawler, so moved.
Is there a second?
Richard Lima, second.
All right, discussion. One thing Terry, want to make sure you're getting everything still. Are you good?
I am, thank you.
Okay.
Is everyone familiar with the background on this one? The
I am.
li-
Can you fill us in for the town, for everybody listening?
Yeah, there's an ordinance from 2008 that makes two of the abutting property owners responsible for the maintenance, repair, replacement of that light. We've been in contact with them, but it's urgent. That needs to get fixed, especially with the increased traffic with the summer coming. We've had a lot of problems and complaints over there, and then we'll seek reimbursement from them. And Mark's already involved in that.
So I know we're going a little out of order here. The plan, Jim, would be we would be trying to indemnify, right? We were trying to get that back, you and Mark, correct?
Boat Pond Plaza and Flood Ford, they're responsible for the payment.
Okay, commentary from the council, Mr. Lima,
None.
Mr. Pugh.
I guess just a quick question for Jim. That's a contractual obligation by those two establishments or those two companies, right?
It's an ordinance that was passed in 2008. A copy of it is in the package. It cites the lot owners. We have all the backup paperwork that goes with it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's the only question. I'm good.
Mr. Murray,
None.
Ms. Lawler,
A question for Jim. Jim, I know that you and I discussed this a little bit because of all the stop signs that were out there, and you were looking at to see whether or not we actually needed to have the light. You're going to be doing a traffic study, because from the way I look at it, it really isn't helpful for the town, but it looks to be more helpful for Flood Forward themselves. What were the result of the traffic study you did?
We haven't completed a full traffic study. They've just examined it. And we do get a lot of complaints about it. I've observed it myself. It's not a good intersection to not have a light.
Okay.
Sorry, Jesse Pugh, I just have one more quick question. I forgot. Jim or Mike, whoever's in the better position, do we have a timeline for when this work is actually going to be completed?
Mike can give you the time. We've pushed it before the council now because it is urgent.
Yeah. I'm just curious if we start like next week, once we approve it, or if it's a few weeks away.
Yeah, Arden's pretty much ready to go once approval's done.
Great.
all right. But we know that's a busy area, so I'm going to call the vote on that. All in favor? We're going to start with Mr. Lima.
Richard Lima, aye.
Mr. Pugh,
Jesse Pugh, aye.
Mr. Murray,
Aye.
Ms. Lawler, Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 5-0. Item 35 is a motion to approve the Parks and Recreation Clark Road Security Project with Lantel Communications Incorporated in the amount of $14,352.63. Is there a motion?
Bill Lawler, so moved.
Is there a second?
Richard Lima, second.
All right, commentary from the council, Mr. Lima,
None.
Mr. Pugh,
None.
Mr. Murray,
None.
Ms. Lawler.
Bill Lawler, none.
All right, all in favor, starting with Mr. Lima.
Richard Lima, aye.
Jesse Pugh,
Jesse Pugh, aye.
Mr. Murray,
Aye.
Ms. Lawler.
Bill Lawler, aye.
Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 5-0. Item 36 is a motion to approve the purchase of sand and the distribution of existing sand just prior to the beach season from George Sherman Sand and Gravel Company Incorporated, utilizing the miscellaneous repair and construction contract in an amount not to exceed $19,000. Is there a motion?
Jill Lawler, so moved.
Is there a second?
Richard Lima, second.
All right, commentary from the council, Mr. Lima.
So again, this is one of those where if the beach does open, we do put sand on the beach every year. So again, whatever construction needs to be done for George Sherman, I think you have to follow through with it, whether you are going to open or not. So for me, those are my comments.
Mr. Pugh.
So for this item, I actually have some questions about this practice in general. I know it comes up every year. I do hear a lot of comments from residents questioning whether this is a productive thing to do, especially with the closing up of the mouth of the river that's been happening over the years. So if Steve is on here, I'd like to get some information on any sort of studies or any data that we have on what happens to this sand when it's washed away. I know it does wash away pretty quickly every year. So if you could speak on that, I'd appreciate it.
Steve on?
He is on. Dave, you there?
Jim, are you
Yeah.
there? I don't want to speak out of turn, but basically the beach replenishment that's done every year, and I see if he gets on, I don't know if he gets on, but basically the beach replenishment, you make a decision whether you want to shore up the beach for the people to enjoy the beach. knowing that that sand can go into other areas. And this isn't the only beach where this happens, and the sand can go and it can get into, in this case, into Narrow River, and you kind of have to make the decision what is better as the sea level has obviously risen in the past couple of decades. So that's kind of the trade that you have to make in your head. And if you think it's a good idea to use the sand or to not, and then what's the better approach. But Jim, is that a fair characterization?
I believe so, yeah. Steve, I spoke to Steve about this along with some other items that didn't make it to the agenda. He seems confident that this is necessary. I do wish he was on now. But.
Thank you guys. I mean, this is something I've been thinking about for a few years. I did try to do a little bit of research into it in other areas just to see what the effects have been. It's mixed, just because every environment's different. The patterns are different in terms of the tide. But there are a lot of instances of estuaries closing up because of this practice. Like in San Diego, they've done some studies on that and actually closed like the Tijuana River estuary unintentionally. It took about 4 or 5 years for that to happen. So with that in mind, it's interesting because this is 1 year under these circumstances where we're probably going to have, almost definitely going to have a lower capacity at the beach by design, because we're probably going to have to place a capacity on the beach in general. So this will be the 1 year where maybe we don't need as much beach as we normally would with larger crowds. So just something to think about, I think, in general with this one.
Commentary, Mr. Murray.
Oh, well, generally, they've been doing it every year, and I think they're pushing it further to the south in that corner, kind of fill that hole up. I'm on board with it. As far as specs on it and surveys, I mean, we got that partnership with URI. It'll probably take a couple of years, or at least a few years, probably a few years, to figure out if putting sand in the southern end is going to have any effect on any of this. So I say go for it, and I'm hoping the beach is going to be open this summer. You guys have got scary talk here tonight. Yeah.
Steve Wright is on, and he didn't realize that we could not hear him. So Steve, can you hear us? He might be muted on his own device. We've unmuted him here.
Would you like me to try audio with him via cell phone?
Oh, so Matt,
Yeah.
I know I already spoke, but since Jesse brought this up, so the history is we did have a beach sustainability committee that looked into what we're doing at the beach, so that people at home understand. Yes, we would love to dredge Now River, the mouth, and bring all that sand, which is over 100,000 yards, back to the beach. And I know Patrick, he knows a little bit about this. The problem being is it's a $2 to $3 million project, maybe a little bit more. And you're not going to get a company to come in to Narragansett for $2, $3, or $4 million because it's not worth their while. They're doing 10, 20, 30, 40, $50 million and up projects. We have somebody who works for Great Lake Dredging Company who comes from our community. He runs one of the biggest barges in the world and dredges. He looked at it at one point. It was looked at, not only did he look at it, I know the Metatuxet Yacht Club had some interest in hearing from this gentleman. And it's not the fact that it can't be done. It's a matter of where the money's going to come from, $2, $3, $4 million. And Fish and Wildlife has been doing a dredging program already on Now River. And Charlie Vandermoor has been more than willing to share some of the permitting that they've already applied for to help us with this. But presently, we don't have the money to be able to dredge Now River. And being that it's not a navigable port where large boats and everyday ships come in, it's not a big priority for CRMC or anybody else. We did have a sustainability committee that was chaired up by Dennis Lynch. We had some very knowledgeable people, John Boothright, that sat on these committees. Their consent to all of this was the cheapest way and the best way to do it is just put sand on the beach. So I'm sure Steve Wright, if he could get on, he would, follow up with that. But yes, we would love to dredge Nile River. We would love to take care of all the people that use Nile River, the boating and all of that. But unless there's a case where it's hurting the environment or a certain species that uses the river, you will probably not get the federal government involved. But yes, there is history on this, just so people will be aware of it.
All right, is there any, anybody, so Steve Wright, we still haven't heard from, is he still having technical? All right, I think we've kind of answered. Ricky had the history. Ricky served on the rec board and was aware of that when he worked, and also on the beach sustainability committee with Dennis Lynch. So in
Matt-
terms of commentary, Jill hasn't spoken yet, so I was
Yeah.
going to go to Jill.
Thank you, Matt. I think what Rick just gave is a great testimony to what Steve Wright probably would have said if he was able to speak to us. Of course, we need to put sand on the beach. And that study that's currently being done by URI is going to give us more of a baseline. But at least for this year, let's put the sand on the beach and hear what URI tells us further. But it sounds like from what URI has told us in Dennis's program, that's the way to go, the best way to do it right now. And certainly we don't have the money. Our budget is going to look really, really tough this year.
So, to Patrick's point, I'm very optimistic and hopeful. I said the patience needs to turn to hope in terms of getting that beach open. So I hear what you're saying, Patrick. I'm going to call the vote. Yeah, that's right. I'm calling the vote. We'll all in favor. We're going to start with Mr. Lima.
Richard Lima, aye.
Mr. Pugh.
I'm gonna actually vote no. So you said all in favor. Do you want me to wait?
You just do yes or no through
All right,
here.
let's do
Yeah.
no.
So the no from Jesse. Mr. Murray.
Yes.
Ms. Lawler.
Jill Lawler, aye.
Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 4-1. Next item is a motion to approve the miscellaneous paving work at Dominic Cristofaro Park to be completed by Carty Corporation, the amount of $52,350 using the State of Rhode Island Master Price Agreement. Is there a motion?
Jill Lawler, so moved.
Is there a
Richard
second?
Lima, second.
And before I go to everyone, yes, Jesse, procedurally, when I call the vote, you can say aye or nay unless Terry has any opposition to that instead of me going yeses and nos. Terry, is that okay with you?
Absolutely. Thank you.
So any commentary on item 37 from Mr. Lima?
None.
Mr. Pugh?
None.
Mr. Murray?
None.
Ms. Lawler?
None.
Mr. Mannix? Okay, all in favor? Mr. Lima?
Richard Lima, aye.
Mr. Pugh?
Jesse Pugh, aye.
Mr. Murray?
Aye.
Ms. Lawler?
Jill Lawler, aye.
Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 5-0. Item 38 is a motion to approve the amended 5-year contract agreement for a food and beverage concession at the Sprague Park Little League building with Narragansett Little League, subject to state and local regulations. Is there a motion?
Jill Lawler, so moved.
Is there a second?
Richard Lima, second.
All right, discussion on this item. We'll start with Mr. Lima.
Richard Lima, aye.
No, just discussion. Any commentary?
Oh, no discussion.
Commentary, Mr. Pugh.
My only commentary would be with the $800 deposit. Would we want to? I guess I'm just concerned that they're not even going to be able to use it this year. So I don't know if we'd want to give them like an exception on that deposit until the season where they actually use it. It's just going to sit empty for a year. If that makes any sense. So we could amend the terms if anyone was interested in doing that.
First year free.
Well, it's free anyway.
Is it? I don't know. I didn't get any paperwork on any of this.
So no annual fee. for the 5 years. But there is a deposit amount. And there is, there's an offset of $500 for utilities. So I'm curious if it makes sense to amend those two instances to add some wording in to say maybe like first active season or something like that. Whatever makes more legal sense. That'd be more of a Mark question.
Agreed.
We should take a look at that. I reviewed that contract for Steve. But Jesse, if memory serves me correctly, they were using that facility. That deposit may have been made prior, and this may be a rollover, because I know they've been using that facility for years. So we can, I mean, I don't think there's an urgency to this. Maybe we can continue it. We can talk to Steve about whether that deposit's, been in place for a while, or this is a new deposit. And if it's a new deposit, maybe we just put it off a year.
They have paid it already, for the
What's that?
record. They have paid it already. Steve was able to text.
Okay.
So then we're okay.
I guess except for number 8, which would be the annual $500 fee. So could we waive that this year? Or would we just not request it from them?
I guess if they don't use the park, I mean, I would imagine that most of these utilities are night games where they're putting the lights on. If they're not playing this year, then I think we can come back and take a vote to waive it. Steve can make note of that, and I don't think anyone here would object to waiving that fee if they're not using it.
All right.
We can put it off and I can draft something in the contract, but I really think we can handle this in a more informal fashion.
That makes sense.
Ms. Lawler, is there any commentary?
I would agree with that because from what the governor said today is that she could, if she can open things up sooner, she will. So hopefully she won't have to close down our entire summer. Maybe the kids can actually play baseball a little bit. That'd be a good thing.
And this also, the Little League concessionaire volunteers used to do it. Then we had a concessionaire who actually didn't work out. So people actually, others have stepped forward in this case. So I think I wouldn't want to be continuing an item where people have stepped forward to fill a vacuum. And I believe they had started to do this informally last, because at the Little League parade, I think I remember the 2 people working behind at the concessionaire. So I just, I wouldn't want to, discourage that, especially since they fill that vacuum. So I'm going to call the vote on this. Mr. Lima,
Richard Lima, aye.
Mr. Pugh,
SCPUI.
Mr. Murray,
Aye.
Ms. Lawler,
Lawler, aye.
Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 5-0. Item 39 is a motion to approve a victualling license for James Durkin doing business as Barbecue Beach at 1155 Judith Road, Narragansett, Rhode Island, subject to state and local regulations. Is there a motion?
Jill Lawler, so moved.
Is there a second?
Richard Lima, second.
Matt, we have a question from the public.
It's this on number 39.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, right. So good. We're gonna go through council commentary and then we'll go to the public. All right.
Okay, sorry, thank you.
Yep, no, that's fine. Item 39. So we are gonna just have commentary first from the council and then go to the public. Do we have Mr. Lima, any commentary on 39?
I'm just wondering what type of, I see Barbecue Beach. I'm not sure or familiar with what type of menu and all of that's going to be. So those would be some of the concerns and questions I have. And with what's going on, when do they really want to open? Are they just going to, I know it's more of a takeout type place, but I would like to get a little more information myself on it.
All right, Mr. Pugh.
Yeah, I'm curious. Sorry, I don't know that address offhand. Is that an existing building that has been something else?
Yes. That's a building across from Mount Carey's on the corner there.
Cozy Corner.
Cozy Corner.
Yep.
Ocean Road, Point Judith Road.
Okay. All right. And yeah, that's my other question. But got it. Thank you, Patrick.
I'm sorry about that. So we've got, okay, then Patrick, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see a problem with it. Who cares what the menu is? I don't care if he's serving alligator. He's gonna provide some kid a job, hopefully for the summer, so I'm on board with it. And I always like a good barbecue. Damn.
Ms. Lawler.
I have no problem with this.
So Mr. Zanfrillo, so we have Dan.
Just a moment. Excuse me, just a moment, Mr. President. The applicant is also one of the attendees. He doesn't have his hand raised, but if there's questions you wanted to ask of him directly before you went to other audience members, you might do that.
Okay.
I can
Is
unmute.
the hand raised?
No, hang on.
We'll just go in order, the hand raised, Terry, I think, and then if he wants to.
Okay.
So Dan, can you, we've got a public comment, so we've gone, the council's commented, and then we've got anybody with the hand raised, so we have Mr. Zanfrillo.
And, yep,
Okay,
I just looked this up. This is the old Iggy's. This is the former Iggy's. And so I've got a couple of concerns. First of all, there's a lot of traffic on this road already. It's like a raceway. So I'd be concerned and like to know if any traffic studies were done and how it's going to impact the neighborhood. You know, there was talk a while back of having even having a traffic light or a police officer there, because for my street is right near there, where I turn out, and sometimes in the summer already, it's very hard to turn out onto Point Judith Road. And the other thing is, if it's a barbecue and there's smokers, you know, is that gonna, some people, you know, that can be a little tough on the neighborhood too. The fumes and so forth coming over. So I don't think there's enough information on this right now. And you know, we got a real traffic problem down there right now, and this is only going to add to it. So I would encourage that a little more kind of due diligence might be needed, perhaps with a traffic study, to understand if it's going to impact the neighborhood, because there's really not much room for anything else, it seems, there right now.
all right, thank you.
I'd like to pipe in on that.
All right, yeah, just, is there any other public comment, Terry or Dan? Any other hands raised? Okay, so go ahead, Mr. Murray.
Yeah, as far as the traffic study, when they put Iggy's in, the cozy corner was in existence. So a previous traffic study has been done. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Lawler, did you weigh in on this?
Yeah, I said I have no problem, but just since Mr. Durkin is on, can he answer Paul's question as far as the smokers, please? That's a valid question.
I can't force people to speak.
I know.
I'm sorry.
Not even you can do that, I know. Mr. Durkin, if you're on, could you please make Paul Zanfrillo feel a little bit better about your smokers or your intent to have smokers there? He loves barbecue, by the way. Okay. If you're on, could you please make Paul Zanfrillo feel a little bit better about your smokers or your intent to have smokers there? He loves barbecue, by the way.
Hello?
Hey, Jim.
Hey, Patrick. Who's that?
Go ahead, talk.
All right, hold on.
Mr. Durkin, just say your name and address for the record, please.
All right, I'm talking, right?
Yeah, just say your name for Terry and address for the record.
All right, so it's Jim Durkin.
Yeah.
And Paul Zanfrillo has a question about.
It's a question. The comment in general was about smokers and because of the barbecue aspect of it and the busyness of the corner.
Yeah, so right now, we have a pre-existing restaurant that since our hotel will probably be closed down for the summer, we decided to open up the old Iggy's establishment. Instead of getting into a controversy with our neighbors who are seafood people, we decided to go with a barbecue theme, which will be barbecue pork and chicken, corn, different, style beans and stuff like that. And there will be a smoker, and hopefully everybody appreciates the smoke. I actually know where Paul lives, and Paul will not be affected by the neighborhood behind there, because the southwest winds in the summer will push the smoke in a different direction from Paul. But hopefully Paul comes and eats the barbecue. I don't know. Is there any other questions?
So you're just taking your staff, Jimmy, from the hotel, the cooks and whatever you have, and you're trying to downsize and move over there just to give them employment, keep things operating.
Sort of, Rick. I mean, that's where we came up with the idea, because I'm not sure how many people are going to want to go into restaurants this summer, and I'm not sure how many people are going to go into hotels.
Yep.
So that's where it all sparked, and I mean that's what we're doing. I mean, we have the right to do it. I believe it's a pre-existing restaurant since 32. I think it's been there, and different. It's been Iggy's actually. It's been ice cream. It's been all kinds of different little operations.
Right. So you're just trying to restructure and go with the times that are presented in front of you.
Yeah, and we're going to clean it up and make it nice and attractive, and give everybody a different to-go option.
All right, thank you. We've got, is there any other, right, so council's all commented. Anybody else stand from the public?
Oh, public's clear.
All right, so we are going to, on 39 and 40, I guess my only question, it's not even a question, my commentary would be, we put off the liquor license applications for other establishments till June 1st. Our order goes till May 8th. There's no sense of urgency on a victualling license on these. But that was my only thought on it. It's something that if people had questions, the items could be continued. But if there's no other commentary from the council, I'm just going to call the vote. Mr. Lima?
Richard Lima, aye.
Mr. Pugh?
Jesse Pugh, aye.
Mr. Murray?
Aye.
Ms. Lawler?
Jill Lawler, aye.
Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 5-0. And item 40. Item 40.
Somebody's surprised.
All set.
I'm sorry.
40.
I'm sorry, yeah, 40. Thank you, Patrick. Number 40 is a motion to approve a victualling license application for Melissa Frank doing business as Gansett Poke at 1004 Boston Neck Road, Suite 1, Narragansett, Rhode Island, subject to local and state regulations. Is there?
Jill Lawler,
All right, is there a second?
Richard Lima, second.
All right. So I think the conversation could be similar here from the council. Mr. Lima, is there anything that you would like to say?
So is this gonna be in where Eddie's Barbecue was?
No,
No? What's the address on this? I'm not familiar with each street or a number. Where is this gonna be located?
It's where the gourmet shop was and where the nail salon is on the other, on the corner lot right across from Eddie's Barbecue.
The
Oh,
old,
okay. So that's is that, I call it Santilli's building? Is that the
Yes.
building?
Yeah.
Yeah, but Bonnet Market used to be.
Okay.
Yep.
And any idea what type of food or anything that they're gonna do? Anybody have any info as far as, is it a sandwich shop? Is it gonna be dinner? Is it gonna be?
Sushi bowl, deconstructed sushi bowls, hot rice, cold vegetables, cold protein, sauce and toppings.
There you go.
What it reads.
All right. Answered my questions.
All right, Mr. Pugh, any commentary?
no, well, I guess real quick. So it's the same people that have a food truck right now in town. So Gansett Poke, they make those bowls and they go drive around town and sell them off the truck. So this is gonna be a kind of a prep area for them, like a commissary for all their prep. And then they're also gonna have like a small service window on the side there where you can order straight off of, through that window and get takeout there as well. But very small, not like a full service operation. So I think it's pretty exciting for people living in the North End. So I'm excited for it.
I'll take another restaurant.
Yeah.
Mr. Murray,
Yeah, I'm all set.
Ms. Lawler,
I'm all set and like to spend local, more of these restaurants that help them out.
all right, so I'm gonna call the vote. Mr. Lima,
Richard Lima, aye.
Mr. Pugh,
SEQ,
Mr. Murray,
I,
Ms. Lawler,
Jill Lawler, aye.
Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 5-0. Item 41 is a motion to authorize the town of Narragansett to continue to use the services of the Department of Business Regulation, State Building Office to conduct building official duties within the town until further notice pursuant to Memorandum of Understanding. Is there a motion?
Jill Lawler, so moved.
Is there a second?
Richard Lima, second.
Before we go to the council, Jim, do you want to briefly summarize this?
With the sudden retirement of building official, we have no other employee that is authorized to actually issue the permits, certificates of occupancy, electrical and plumbing inspections. We need a state certified building official. And we had to do it quickly because because of the pandemic, number one, we weren't having the council meetings, and the retirement, we were given 2 weeks notice. So we have short applications. We end the application period, and currently we're using the Department of Business Regulations, State Building Officials Office to conduct our serve as our building official. And they said that they can do that right now indefinitely until we have to give them I think 2 weeks or 20 days notice if we wish to cancel it. And it's the bill is $75 an hour.
All right, thank you. No, I think that's helpful. That did happen quickly, and it was kind of disappointing that we were unable to really do any kind of send off for Tony, who'd been working for the town for so long. So I just take the opportunity to thank him publicly for his service to the town. And I said to Jim when, the last day, I said, I guess no cake, huh? Jim said no cake.
I felt bad. Everyone was locked down in their offices, and he quietly walked out the door. And I called him after, but yeah, unfortunate. But we'll be in touch with him in the summer. Things loosen up a bit.
All right, so I'm going to go to council commentary on this item. We'll start with Mr. Lima.
So I think, Jim, we've had some applicants for this position.
We have.
Right. So I'm fine operating the way we are now, but once we can get moving forward, I'd like to look into the applicants, see who they are. It'd be nice to have somebody who, again, is familiar with all the building that goes on in this community. And if they have some knowledge of the Washington County area and the codes and that, it's nice to be one-on-one with somebody. So I would definitely like to look into those applicants and see what can be done. And if so, whether it's a full-time position or whether this council would agree that maybe we could do a co-share with another community and split some of the cost of this position, which I think due to the budget and what we're going to be faced with, I think it may be a direction we may have to look into.
As I've mentioned, all those options are being explored right now.
Mhm. Thank you.
All right, commentary from Mr. Pugh.
Yeah, I think this is a good plan for the time being. I think the swiftness of getting this done makes a lot of sense. I appreciate it. Of course, when we get into our zoning ordinance changes later on, in a month or so, it's going to get a little bit more complicated, but for now, this makes sense to me.
Jesse, could you repeat that? It got all muddled.
Okay. So, well, it was kind of useless commentary anyway, probably. So whatever. I was just saying that it makes sense. What you've done here makes a lot of sense for the time being. And as we get into the zoning, the bulk zoning ordinance changes, it's going to be a more complicated, complex position. So
Absolutely.
we'll have to reevaluate then. But for now, this makes sense to me.
Get it. Absolutely. I get it. Thank you.
Mr. Murray,
No comment.
Ms. Lawler.
Just want to thank Jim because this was some great thinking, because with Tony's departure, it left us without the ability to have anyone actually sign a permit. So this was a great way to make sure the town could continue with some building and development. So thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
I think it's a good opportunity for, this is a short-term solution, but there's also an opportunity there for shared services with some of our neighboring towns, something we may want to think about as a council. Dan, is there any public comments?
We do have one.
Okay. All right. If you could unmute them and have them state their name and address for the record for the town clerk.
For some reason, they're not unmuting. Come on.
Dan, if a participant has their own microphone muted, does that override what you do?
There is a possibility, yes.
The person who's identified as Rusty, can you unmute your microphone?
I'm sorry, I really didn't mean to do that.
There we go. Would you identify yourself with your full name, please?
It's Russell Hahn.
Thank you.
Sorry about that, Chief.
Hi, Russ.
Hello.
Do you have a commentary on number 41, item 41?
Like
Mr.
the
Hahn, you
old
had your
dialing for
hand.
dollars.
I'm sorry, I accidentally did whatever I did, so I apologize for that. I've got no comment. Except I wish Tony well.
Absolutely. I'll do. Hopefully we'll get to see him a little bit this summer when it loosens up, Russell.
As
Right.
soon as the golf season starts, you can bet your sweet patootie he'll be out there.
Keep up the texts and emails, Russell.
Will do.
Thanks.
All right, with that, we're going to I'm going to call the vote. We're going to start with Mr. Lima.
Richard Lima, aye.
Mr. Pugh,
Jesse Pugh, aye.
Mr. Murray,
Aye.
Ms. Lawler,
Jill Lawler, aye.
Mr. Mannix, Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 5-0. Item 42 is a motion to approve, motion to approve the 1-year contract extension for beach dumpster service with Republic Services Incorporated in the amount of $21,468 per year, and at their quoted prices for additional dumpsters and emergency pickup services under the same terms and conditions as the original contract. Is there a motion?
Jill Lawler, so moved.
Is there a second?
Richard Lima, second.
Discussion, any commentary from the council? We'll start with Mr. Lima.
I have none.
We'll go to Mr. Pugh,
None.
Mr. Murray,
None.
Ms. Lawler,
None.
and we're going to call the vote. We'll start with Mr. Lima,
Richard Lima, aye.
Mr. Pugh,
Jesse Pugh, aye.
Mr. Murray,
Aye.
Ms. Lawler,
Jill Lawler, aye.
Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 5-0. Item number 43 is a motion to receive and make a determination on the validity of a voter initiative to amend the town charter to establish procedures whereby all town council and school committee candidates would be elected on a partisan basis.
Jill Lawler, so moved.
Is there a second?
Richard Lima, I'll second it.
All right, so discussion, I'm actually going to split this motion in half because we have two things going on. We have the opinion of the solicitor that we basically receive. It's like receiving and placing on file, and then we have to make a decision as a council. So first, I'm going to put forward a motion to receive the solicitor's written opinion with regard to item number 43 filed on March 3rd, 2020. So can I get a motion regarding that?
So moved, Jill Lawler.
And is there a second for that?
Second, Richard Lima.
All right, so discussion, again, this is just receiving the solicitor's written opinion. So we're going to go to, I'm going to go to Mark Davis to give his opinion on this. If people recall, with charter initiatives, the voter initiative process of initiatives put forward, and the first step in the process is an opinion from the solicitor regarding whether or not it should be deemed by the council valid or invalid. And after that part of the process, then the signatures are collected by the applicant, or the initiative is deemed invalid. So Mark, I'm going to call on you to go through your receipt of this, please.
I received a petition from the Narragansett Town Clerk, date stamped March 3rd, 2020, submitted by Winters B. Hames III. The petition was submitted pursuant to Chapter 4 of the Narragansett Town Charter, which deals with initiatives and petitions. The petition seeks to reverse the 1988 approved voter initiative whereby candidates for the town council and school committee would be elected on a partisan basis. Now, if that sounds familiar, it's because Mr. Hames submitted an identical or substantially similar initiative on September 30th, 2019, that you, the town council, subsequently approved. Mr. Pursuant to Chapter 4, specifically Section 1-4-4, Mr. Hames had a maximum of 120 days to submit the required number of signatures of qualified electors to the town clerk. On or about the 120th day, Mr. Hames decided to pull that petition and resubmit this petition, which is similar, if not identical. If you're not familiar with Chapter 4, Chapter 4 lays out the procedure by which a petition is submitted, the opinions, the approvals, and then once approved by the town council, the very strict requirements, including obtaining and submitting for verification voter signatures. Since there is no requirement, and to my knowledge, previous petitions that have been submitted by Mr. Hames had signatures but not dates. Knowing that, and knowing that there's not a requirement that there be a date by a signature, I find this to be a circumvention of the requirements laid out in Section 1-4-4, doing an end around the time requirements. So for that reason, in my opinion, this is invalid. He had the town approval. He had 120 days to solicit and obtain the necessary signatures and submit those, and he failed to do so. And I think this is just a pure attempt to circumvent the time requirements. So in my opinion, this petition is invalid.
All right, so your advice would be that we would rule this invalid. So in terms of just the receipt of the solicitor's opinion with regard to item 43, I'm actually going to call the vote on that because we're simply receiving his opinion. So we're going to start with Mr. Lima. I'm going to call the vote on that. Again, this is just receiving the opinion, not making a decision. Mr. Lima.
So, I mean, I'm not for this, so.
Right, but this is just to receive. This is just voting to receive the opinion, and then we're going to talk about what we want to do.
So I'll vote yes to receive.
All right, to receive it. Okay, Mr. Pugh.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Murray,
Yes,
Ms. Lawler,
Jill Lawler, yes.
Matt Mannix, aye. So that motion is approved 5-0. And then we're going to be looking for a motion on the underlying issue, which is where we're making our decision. And the advice of solicitor is to rule it invalid. So I'll be looking for a motion to rule the voter initiative described in item number 43 to be invalid. Is there a motion to that effect?
Jill Lawler, so moved.
Is there a second?
Richard Lima, second.
All right, discussion. All right, so we're going to start with Mr. Lima. Sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
That's fine. I don't have much discussion after listening to Mark. I think Mark laid it out pretty good. This has already been presented once. I guess it didn't happen. So again, I'll leave it at that.
All right, Mr. Pugh.
A couple questions for you, Mark. So I'm just kind of putting the content of the petition off to the side for this, the way I'm looking at it. My question, I guess, is about the charter, because I wasn't aware of this at all. Does a resident not have the ability to resubmit a petition and run the process all over again, meaning collecting all new signatures and just doing it as a new petition?
There's nothing, Jesse, there's nothing in the charter or specific provisions in chapter 4 that would prevent that expressly. The problem is we would have no idea when those signatures were acquired. As I said, he submitted a similar, if not identical petition on September 30th. It was approved shortly thereafter. He had 120 days. So during that 120-day period, he may have garnered 500 signatures. And then if you approve it now, all he has to do, he's got another 120 days to go out and get, you know, the balance, 250 signatures. So, without being able to validate when those signatures were actually obtained, I do not think it's prudent to allow somebody to resubmit it and proceed, because basically you're gutting the time requirements.
Would the papers that we provide to the applicant or the petitioner, would it be unique for this petition?
No, I mean, Terry might be able to speak to it. I'm not aware of any specific signature pages where, like I said, I don't believe there are dates next to the signatures. Therefore, the signatures that he would turn in 120 days from the date, if this were approved, we would have no idea when those were acquired.
Is that correct, Terry?
With regard to the actual petitions that are circulated for signatures, they're unlike the elections laws. There isn't a provision in the charter as to the issuance of the petition on which to gather the signatures. So the person who files the voter initiative petition, it's incumbent upon them to develop their petition form, and that is the document that they circulate for signatures. So it's not something that is generated by the town or the town clerk's office in the same manner that a candidacy would be. Those are very defined as far as who issues them, what's contained in the document. It must have the town seal on the document that is being circulated for signatures. So this is just a completely different kind of petition, and it is developed by the author. It's not a document that's issued by the town. So what it contains and doesn't contain is not within the control of the town.
Okay, so then if an applicant wanted to create a petition right now for something completely different, totally different, it's the same issue. They could still technically use those signatures. So, I mean, we can't assume fraud if we don't have anything in place to prevent it. And again, this is not about the topic because I don't have an opinion on it. I'm just saying, if there's nothing that prohibits someone from starting a new petition, then how can we prohibit it? Just by
Well, generally you wouldn't go, I wouldn't think, or maybe you would get a head start, I don't know. But obviously the intent is, Jesse, that you don't start soliciting signatures until until your petition is actually approved by the town council. In this case, if you were to approve this one, in essence, you've backdated this to November, I think is when it was actually approved. Because those efforts could have started in earnest. If somebody comes before you with a new petition, I guess there's nothing that stops them from soliciting signatures prior to approval, although you would have to question people who are signing things that on a petition that hasn't been approved. So yeah, there's room for abuse, but in this particular case, because it's an identical petition or substantially similar petition, it is definitely, in my opinion, an end around those time requirements. There would be no reason to pull the petition on the day signatures are due if you had the signatures. And we have no way of how close he was. And we have no way of knowing whether those signatures that he had gathered will be used for this exact, people they signed up, they knew what it was, they signed it, and they were in favor of it. But we have no idea how many of those he carries forward. And our charter is clear. You have 120 days. You don't have 240 days. You don't have 360 days because you keep pulling it and resubmitting it.
My assumption was that he clearly didn't get enough signatures, right? So then he basically gave up on that petition and decided to start again, to try it again. That was the way I was assuming it went. But again, it seems like maybe our charter has some issues with what we require for a petition. If we don't require, we're not requiring dates, maybe we should. And maybe we should have some unique identifier on the signature papers too. So that if you do a new petition, it has to be unique, even if it's for the same topic. There has to be some sort of ID or something at the top of the paper that says this is now a fresh petition. It's just kind of, obviously there's a clear problem with this process if we're just making a judgment call based on what's possible. So I understand what you're saying, but those are my thoughts on it.
I don't think improving upon it's a bad idea. I think it's a good idea. But right now we have what we have. I do think looking into it is something, and that's how everything gets better, right? Is you come across problems and that's how documents go from 1 page to 50 pages in a contract is they get built upon and improved every time there's an issue. So I do think there's room for improvement going forward. It's something we should consider. I don't disagree with that.
Thanks.
Mr. Murray.
No comment.
All right, Ms. Lawler.
I agree with Mark's comments, and I just want to add in, at this time where we're at in our country, less division is better. So, nonpartisan, let's just keep it that way. We don't need to divide any more than we are right now.
The 120-day rule is there for a reason. It's a whole process. We went through this process in the spring. We all were, we all were intimately familiar with it. There's the valid versus invalid gatekeeping. then it goes for signatures. There's a signature collection period of 120 days. If those signatures aren't collected, you're not going to be able to resubmit the same question. It's just your process is 120 days, whether it's for you want to change, you want to do shared services with South Kingstown in an increased way and put that in the charter, or whether you want to, change the voting districts, whatever you want to do and whatever you have power over. If it doesn't, the signatures aren't collected 120 days, as Mark has articulated, then the signatures haven't been collected and you failed to meet the threshold that you need to make, which was around 850 signatures in this case. The other thing, Terry, just a second piece of this puzzle is this was submitted on March 3rd. If we had gone through the whole process, the submission of March 3rd, even if it had been a fresh petition on a totally fresh issue, my understanding is there'd be a second problem with this one. Is that correct?
It would be too late to get on the general election ballot in November. The process itself can take as much as 188 days if you play out the full process of being filed, going to the solicitor, back to the council, and then if it was ruled valid, then the signature collection process on the petition. It could take up to 188 days. But regardless, this was filed on March 30th, and our local questions are required to be filed with the Secretary of State's office no later than August 5th, and that's established by state law. So counting back from August 5th, 188 days, what the process of a voter initiative could take, that actually would bring it back to January 30th. So a petition filed on March 3rd is well beyond that in terms of getting it on the general election ballot. And to Councilman Pugh's comments about the charter only allows for voter initiative questions to go on general election ballots. It doesn't make any provision for special elections or off-year election events or anything like that. So we're kind of limited as to when that could have been put on anyway.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to call the vote on this. This is for a motion to rule the voter initiative described in item 43 to be invalid. Oh, is
If I
there more,
could
Terry?
just one more point. For the record, I wanted to make it clear that the solicitor's response was filed within the proper time period. It was filed on March 17th, and it would have gone on the April 6th council agenda for action, but because that meeting was canceled and this is part of the consolidation on tonight's agenda, that the solicitor's response was filed in a timely fashion.
Oh, thank you. All right, if there's nothing else, we're going to call the vote on this. So this is again a motion to rule the voter initiative described in item 43 to be invalid. Mr. Lima.
So I vote for it to be invalid.
So, okay, so just say Mr. Lima. Yeah, aye.
Aye, right.
All right, Mr. Pugh.
Jesse Pugh, I'm going to vote no on this, only because I don't know that the petition itself is invalid based on what we have in the charter for information. We don't have anything that says you can't submit twice. We don't have anything that has a time frame for when you would resubmit. So like, for instance, if it fails, does that mean that you can't submit to the next term, or you can't submit until 2 years later? It's just very vague and we don't have the information. So I'm going to vote no.
Mr. Murray.
I'll be voting aye and going with our attorney's legal opinion. Thank you.
Ms. Lawler.
Lawler, aye.
Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 4-1. Our next agenda item is item 44, a motion to approve a waiver for the Road Races and Events Incorporated Ocean State Road Races, exempting the organization from the town's recently adopted $10,000 donation requirement for the previously approved event on October 25th, 2020. Is there a motion?
Jill Lawler, so moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second, Jesse Pugh.
All right. Discussion, Jesse, this is actually your item. So why don't you start out?
Great, thank you. So this stems from a vote that we took a few months back to require all for-profit road races to donate a flat fee of $10,000 to a local nonprofit. That vote passed 3-2. We had a lot of discussion on it. I did hear from the owner or the organizers of one of the races that is scheduled to be done in town October 25th. So this race was approved by the council prior to the new policy, the $10,000 minimum donation policy. And one of the things that was in our motion to approve that policy was that it would be retroactive. That was one of the reasons why I opposed that motion. You know, because we basically approve something, we make a deal with the business, and then we come back later and say, now we're demanding $10,000, or we're demanding that you donate $10,000. Another issue was it was a fixed price, so it's kind of like supposed to be a one-size-fit-all solution when these road races are different sizes and they raise different amounts of money, or they generate different amounts of money. This was scheduled to be on the agenda about a month ago, except our meeting was canceled, so it carried over to this meeting. Obviously post COVID-19 revelations. But I did speak with the organizers of the race. I think there are a few reasons why we should consider a waiver for them in their circumstance. I do have a few other things to say, but I know that one of the organizers should be on this Zoom. So if Karen would like to speak, I think her hand's raised. I'll talk again after.
All right, so we'll get to that. I'm just going to quickly go through the council for if they wanted to comment. Mr. Lima.
So my only comment is we already voted this once, and it was about making a donation to the town, and from gathering from the people who live in the town, the residents, the taxpayers, they're not really looking for any more road races. They feel that we have enough. And when Karen comes on, we can answer some of these questions, but this is Ocean State Road Races, I believe, is the races for a profit. They do the Providence Marathon, they do the Newport, Rhode Island race, they do the Independent road race in Bristol, they do the Jamestown road race, and they do what you call a Hangover Classic in Bristol. My knowledge with some of the information that's online is if you take all these road races that they do, and they are a profit organization, if you take the 2019 figures, basically put them into the 2020 using the same dollar amounts, the amounts that the people that attended, you're looking at a road race company that through the course of the year can do between $400,000 and $500,000. I understand that's a gross, but if you can do that kind of money and you want to come into Narragansett, then I feel that $10,000 is not a lot of money. We went over this with the Rec Advisory Board. I don't think there's anybody on from the Rec Advisory Board, but it was, you're going to be a profit, give something to the town. We came up with the $10,000 because there is one road race that gives to the town, and I think they give to the Historic Society. They give them a check every year for $10,000. So there you go, $10,000. So again, that's how I feel about this, and I'm still going to stay with what I voted before on this. Thank you.
Mr. Murray, do you have any commentary?
Yeah, I understand Ricky's concern, but that 400,000 is a gross. Well, I mean, what is their net? Our beach gross is 2.3, what, 3 million, 2.3 million, and we net 300,000. So they may have a $400,000 gross, but unless you know what their net is, that's why I believe a percentage like 10 or 15% of their gross or whatever, or net, whichever way you want to, would be fair for all participants. And I don't think we should be turning away road raises in 2020. You know, because there's a lot of things that aren't going to go on in Narragansett, and this is a tourist town. And I don't have people calling me up and saying, damn, another road race. What is going on there? They're short-lived. Usually they're in the fall or early spring. Half the time it rains and nobody shows up. Half the crew shows up. So I don't think it's a big burden that has been played out as in the previous meeting. So I would like to see a percentage if you want to give money to charities through this venue, private road race companies. I would get a percentage of whatever they're taking. And that would be fair for all involved.
So to Patrick's comment, Matt, and Patrick, I'm not opposed to that, but this year here, I'm just going to say this with all the road races, and I'm involved with some of the major ones. I think that we're going to be looking, if it's possible, and they allow us to, like I said before, with the state and local regulations that will be implemented on us, we may be pushing back all the road races that we have now. And if we need to do a road race on this particular date for a nonprofit organization that's been in our town for years and years and years and gives back a substantial amount of money to this town, then I would be looking at that front line of races first before I would be doing a profit race. That's just my opinion on this.
I think we got to take them one at a time and cross the bridge when we get to it. You may not have the tent down there in the pier for the event there. Name the event there, Ricky.
The blessing.
Blessing of the Fleet. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I think you may not have the tent, but you may have the road race because, most people are 6 feet apart in a road race, I would imagine. I think they can easily handle that one. But I'm optimistic. I think I'd like to see the governor relax and we get opened up during the summer. It's going to be warm out, by humidity. Virus doesn't stand a chance, but I don't want to get off topic. I don't think we should be chasing away anybody who wants to visit the town of Narragansett in 2020.
Thank you, Miss Lawler.
I have no comment.
All right. So do we have anyone from the public? Dan, I see a hand raised, so could you facilitate?
She is ready to talk.
All right, so please state your name and address for the record for the town clerk.
My name is Karen Zions, and I'm the owner of Road Races and Events Incorporated, and our corporate address is 3 Mayo Drive in Warren, Rhode Island. So I kind of feel like you're vilifying for-profit road races. We're in the business to make monies for our families. It appears that, that's not okay with some of the folks on the town council here. We're business owners. We're not about greed or excess. We're about being good members of the community and providing a service to our customers. We're a female-owned Rhode Island benefit corporation, and we purposely chose this designation to hold ourselves to a higher standard. We donate to charity. We volunteer for nonprofits. We strive to be good environmental stewards and strong partners to our communities and charitable partners to as many nonprofits as we can. Back to the community with funding kids running programs, direct donations to rec programs, and especially in Narragansett, and charitable causes. Keep in mind that we're bringing revenue to a community that has lost considerable revenue already over the past few months. Our runners stay in lodging locally, they eat and shop in town, the slow time of year for the merchants. And hosting a marathon is much more expensive than a 2,500 person 10K race. We have to pay police, fire, EMTs in 3 communities and volunteers for 6+ hours rather than 2 hours for a 10K. So this drives the profit level down. You know, Mr. Lima talked about profit. Well, gross revenue does not equal profit. That's business 101. So we do not make a lot of money on this race. It's a small race for us. It's 1,000 people or less. Actually, the last year we had about 800 and some. So it's one of our smaller races. So we don't make very much money from this race at all. It's just a nice event to have in a beautiful community, and people can run by the seaside and run through 3 communities that are really beautiful and special to us. It's, you know, essentially, it feels like, you know, you're taxing a mom and pop hardware store the same as you would tax somebody like Home Depot. And this is a tax, you know, make no bones about it. This is a tax because it's a requirement. And I'm sure you can understand that our business has been affected by coronavirus in a large way. We haven't had one race yet this year. We have lost the first 4 races of the year. So we're in a financial difficult situation as well. You know, we've had to cancel quite a few races, and it looks like we're going to have to cancel a few more. So this has been a financial hardship for us as well. And we may not even get the number of participants that we anticipated for this race in the end of October as a result of this pandemic. So making the profit on this race is going to be even more difficult to achieve. And then adding this taxing restriction just makes things, it just further compounds things for us. This event was approved back in January without this condition, and it seems punitive to me to implement it after the fact. I would like the council to waive the donation requirement for road races and events for the October 25th, 2020 Ocean State Road Races event.
Excuse me.
All right,
I'd
thank
like
you.
to-
Dan, are there other members from the public that are waiting?
There are, we have one more, Margaret Rogers.
I read it. So please, if you can have her come forward, and if she can state her name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Margaret Rogers, 68 Earls Court. So I just wanted to say I'm fully in support of this motion to waive the $10,000 fee. I was privy to the previous council discussion when they enacted this, and I don't understand why this wasn't brought up in January when the petitioner was before you. It came in after the fact, and to me, it reflects very poorly on our town, because it would appear to me that this is a bait and switch, which we know is somewhat of a form of fraud in civil contract law. So I don't like the town entering into an agreement with somebody and then coming back and saying, whoops, we don't like this. We're going to extort $10,000 out of you because we changed our mind. I do feel that Rhode Island is, has very high taxes. We're going to suffer inordinately now because of COVID-19. Everybody's going to suffer. The Narragansett Historical Society, as you know, does a big fundraiser every year, which is a road race. I believe it's their biggest fundraiser, and it literally allows them to do, the body of the work that they do with Gray Matter Marketing, which is also a for-profit. So if you do this for this race, I would assume that you have set precedent and you're going to continue to extort $10,000 out of other for-profits, which is going to hurt people, organizations like the Narragansett Historic Society. So I would encourage you to waive this fee. I would encourage you to revisit the whole thought process that was the underpinning of the motion that was enacted previously. Thank you.
And is there anyone else from the public, Dan?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, is there any further council commentary?
I have a few other things. I just wanted to follow up after Karen, the organizer, spoke. So just to kind of recap some of this. So we're going to have a late tourist season in Narragansett this year, if we have much of one at all. So everything's getting pushed back. This is one event that is in the fall, that's already scheduled, that's going to help businesses in town later in the season. So for us to risk losing that, and it may be lost if it doesn't make sense financially, it doesn't make any sense. Why would we want to take away something in this, you know, historically, it's probably going to be historically bad season for businesses. This is something that's going to help businesses. So that's one advantage of having it. Secondly, like the organizer said, they're going to have less runners probably. So that just takes away profit as well. So that $10,000 makes less sense when they're going to make less profit. When I spoke to her after our meeting last month or 2 months ago, she told me, gave me a little bit of a clue into what they make from this. And a $10,000 donation is not feasible for a race this size. It's just, I mean, the numbers don't make they don't add up, they don't make sense. Another thing she told me was that in all the towns and cities where they run these races, and a lot of times they'll go through multiple towns during one race, Narragansett is the only town in the state where they work that's requiring a donation. The only town. The only other town where they do any other, have any arrangement like this is, I think it was Jamestown, where they have agreed more of a goodwill sort of situation to donate a per runner amount. So it's a much smaller amount, but that's something that they worked out in a more, friendly situation. They were able to work that with Jamestown. So that's it. What else can I say? And, the other thing that I think is really the biggest thing is that we approved their race under different conditions. So it might be unfortunate that we enacted the policy a little too late, but the fair thing to do is to exclude them because they weren't approved under this policy. It's something that you wouldn't do in business. It's not ethical, and we shouldn't be doing it as a town. So, I know we want to enact this $10,000 fee, but this is one situation where it's really not fair and it's not ethical. So that's what I have.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak from the council? All right, I just object to the term extortion because first of all, we're not, the money's not going into the town coffers. The money is going to local organizations that we care about and maybe could, help as we get through this crisis. So I'm going to call the vote. Go ahead.
Can I just briefly add to, Patrick, you mentioned that you don't receive a lot of phone calls. I receive a lot of phone calls and emails from people saying we have way too many road races already. So $10,000, I mean, if you weigh what the community has to happen for $10,000, it seems like it's a reasonable amount for me.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I just haven't received anybody complain. I've been up here, this is my 6th year, 6 year long. It's like a marathon years. I haven't received complaints. I mean, it happens. This one's in October, end of October. I think the people who complain won't even be here. So I just feel we should be supporting everybody, and especially local business in October to come and have breakfast or stay over or what have you, even have a cup of coffee. So I can approve this waiver.
All right, so I'm going to call the vote. All in favor, Mr. Pugh,
Aye.
Mr. Lima,
Richard Lima, no.
Mr. Murray,
Aye.
Ms. Lawler,
Bill Lawler, no.
Matt Mannix, no. Motion fails 2-3. All right, our final item is our public comment portion of the meeting. This is an open part of the meeting where people can talk about issues affecting the town. So if you want to raise your hand in the electronic fashion, I know it's not the ideal way, but and if you raise your hand, Dan Howland will call on you. We just ask that people keep their comments to a reasonable length. So Dan, I'm gonna, I know you, as the hands get raised, just please do them in order that they're raised, if that works for you.
Sounds good. I have one right now, Margaret Rogers.
Okay. All right, and just each person, please name and address for the town clerk.
Good evening again, Margaret Rogers, 68 Earls Court. Customarily, it's our tradition that the first Saturday in May, the Recreation Department begins to sell beach and parking passes at the beach. And I'm just wondering, given the challenges of COVID-19, we don't know if our beach will allow to be open, given the executive orders that are in place. But I'm wondering, are you going to proceed with selling beach and parking passes? And if not, what is your plan to notify the public that they will not be sold? Because literally that would be starting this Saturday. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else?
No one at
Jim
this
Tierney,
time.
I'm just going to say, I don't want to speak out of turn, but right now, there's not been a change to the first day of beach pass sales. But I just want to make sure I'm not speaking out of turn. Is that correct, Mr. Tierney?
That is correct. We're still working through the policy. We should have more information within a week.
All right, Dan?
We have one more, Rusty.
Okay, this time I actually did want to say something. I would encourage this council to sell the beach passes, and I think under the circumstances, as residents or as a resident, I would feel fine spending the money for a beach pass, not really knowing what the availability or ability to use the beach will be this year. But I think it's the right thing to do to support our community. And I think maybe this is a bit of a reach, but I think that people will be able to use the beach. I just don't think as many people will be able to gather at one time as we're used to. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Yes, we're trying to be very hopeful. Yes, I agree. Is there anyone else, Dan?
No.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. I know this was a challenge for some of us, but I thank you to Dan for getting us through it. I'm going to take, Terry, have you got everything you needed?
I do, thank you.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make that motion, Jill Lawler.
Is there a second?
Richard Lima, second.
All right, all in favor, we'll start with Mr. Pugh,
Jesse Pugh, aye.
Mr. Lima,
Richard Lima, aye.
Mr. Murray,
Yes, aye.
Miss Lawler.
Jill Lawler, aye.
Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 5-0. All right, good night and God bless everyone. All right, take care of yourselves.
Smoke them if you
Thank
got them, virtually.
Thank you.